My name is Elena Cruz. I'm 34, and until that December morning, I thought my life was finally balanced. I'm an emergency nurse, used to chaos, yet somehow chaos in my personal life felt different. My boyfriend, Daniel, and I had been together for 4 years, living in a cozy Seattle apartment where we tried to balance bedtime stories, leftover pasta, and laundry that never folded itself. Life was neat, organized in routines that gave me comfort. And then came my family. Family, my anchor, and my trap. My mother, Catherine, had a way of turning love into a performance. My father, Richard, was practical and steady, but often worried too much about consequences. And Lucas, my younger brother, had the kind of charm that let him slip past rules, bills, and responsibilities alike. My life had always been about preparation. Lucas thrived on improvisation. Mom thrived on drama. Dad thrived on caution. I thrived on quiet, calculated calm. 2 months ago, my phone buzzed during a rare pause between shifts. It was Catherine. Her voice came through bright, too bright, the kind that made you sit up straight because something monumental was about to land. "Elena, we're going to Hawaii in October," she said. "A real vacation. Family time. We deserve it." I checked my PTO because that's what I do. "You checked my PTO?" I asked. "You told me your login months ago during taxes. Don't overthink it. Just say yes." I said yes, not because I loved beaches, not because I wanted sand between my toes. I said yes because she sounded excited, excited for me to be there. I even bought a pair of swim trunks with tiny blue sailboats, mispriced at $19.99, and slid them into a bag labeled vacation, like I was storing a promise. 2 weeks before our flight, while I was taking a quick walk outside the hospital in my uniform, my phone buzzed again. Catherine's name flashed. "Elena," she said, using the tone reserved for emergencies, "Hawaii is canceled. Financial problems, adult problems. Don't worry, we'll handle it." I asked questions. She deflected. I told myself to be calm. I worked through what would have been my PTO, pretending the bag of trunks wasn't a broken promise in my closet. 3 days later, lunch break, I opened Instagram to kill 5 minutes. Catherine waving, palm trees in the background, Richard grinning with a drink and a purple umbrella, Lucas on a balcony, captioned "Aloha Vibes" with a song that made me feel small. Same hotel, same ocean, same sun. I stared until my fries went cold. My mind, trained for circuits and meters, had a dumb thought. The problem wasn't financial. I just wasn't connected. Then the human part of me burned with a small, mean heat in my throat. I locked the phone and went back to work. I didn't text, I didn't call. I whispered the word context like a prayer, hoping it could pay a bill. 2 days later, I brought leftover chili to their house. Catherine took it politely. Lucas walked in carrying pineapple slices in a plastic container, grinning like we were in a sitcom. "Captain, you missed paradise," he said, snapping his fingers. Mom's eyes cut to him. I watched the juice puddle creep toward the counter's edge and wiped it up silently. Nobody said thank you. I didn't bring up Hawaii. I asked about Dad's knee. "It felt surprisingly good in the water," he said. "Nice," I replied. It sounded like someone else's voice. That night, I left the empty chili container in my sink on purpose, a tiny protest only I would see. Weeks of quiet passed. Then Catherine arrived at my apartment with a thick folder and a smile that tried too hard. "Elena," she said, "we need 200,000 in." I looked at the folder, then at her hands, where blue pin numbers dotted her palms like a grocery list. I stepped into the hall. Calmly, I handed her an envelope instead. "This part is numbers," I thought, because numbers don't lie. They sit there whether you believe them or not. Each expense, each little just-for-now favor, all the bills I had quietly covered for Lucas, for Mom, for Dad, they were meticulously tallied. Textbooks, car cosigns, water heaters, tax penalties, repairs. $198,940, not counting the part of me that had learned to say okay before my throat tightened. I added a 1-page letter, simple, straight lines. "I will not lend, cosign, guarantee, or open accounts for you. I will remove you as authorized users. Any attempt to open credit in my name will be handled legally. This isn't revenge. This is closure. I love you." The next morning, Catherine came back, lipstick serious, stepping inside like she owned the space. "Did you think about it?" "I did," I said, handing her the first envelope. "Take this instead." She opened it. Her eyes flicked across the ledger. "You're keeping score," she said. "I kept my promises," I said. "The way you kept yours." No yelling, no doors slammed. Just a clear, cold line drawn between love and obligation. And in that quiet, I realized something. I was done being the family ATM. Done letting love be measured in loans. Done pretending Instagram islands weren't lies. I stepped back and let the room breathe. My heart pounded, but I felt steady. After that morning with the envelopes, I thought I'd feel relief. But life has a way of reminding you that boundaries are only as strong as people respect them. I began to revisit the years of silent sacrifices I had made for my family. Every little favor I'd covered, Lucas's forgotten phone bills, Catherine's impulsive purchases, Richard's minor surgeries, and the penalties I sorted quietly, added up. Each sum was a reminder that I had been the invisible glue holding their chaos together. Lucas had a knack for charm. One moment he was laughing over a forgotten assignment. The next, he was borrowing yet another $700 for a music project that usually ended in a half-finished SoundCloud track and a new ring light. Catherine had the perfect poker face. A bright smile, quick words, and somehow I always felt like I was failing her if I said no. Richard stayed in the background, cautious and reasonable, but often silent when I cleaned up the mess. 2 weeks later, Catherine came again, this time with a folder thicker than before. "Elena," she said, urgency lacing her words, "we really need $200,000 for the refinancing. We'll pay it back, I promise." I didn't flinch. I knew exactly what to do. I handed her a second envelope. Inside was the ledger I had prepared. Every expense meticulously recorded, including mileage, hours I had given, money lent. It was all there. Numbers don't gaslight. Numbers don't lie. Numbers weigh more than promises. As she flipped through it, her face changed subtly, furrows deepening, lips tightening. Lucas hovered behind her, playful grin fading slightly as he realized I wasn't joking. "Textbooks, car payments, crown, water heater, you kept track of all this?" Catherine's voice trembled, but she tried to regain control. "I kept track of everything because you promised you'd pay me back," I said softly. "This is the score you promised." It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about shaming them. It was about self-preservation. Every little act of generosity I'd given had been quietly exploited. I had buried my resentment to maintain peace, but peace built on debt isn't peace. It's submission. I watched Catherine's eyes scan the columns, Lucas shifting uncomfortably. The air was heavy, thick with unspoken accusations, disappointment, and realization. For the first time in my adult life, I felt the power of saying no. That night, I couldn't sleep. The ledger sat on my desk, open like a portal to every quiet compromise I'd made. Daniel noticed my tense silence, but didn't pry. He trusted me to handle my family the way I always had. But even he could see the tight lines around my mouth, the way my hands trembled slightly as I recounted the numbers silently. The next day, Lucas texted me. Rapid fire. "Come on, we can split it. Just co-sign. You're embarrassing yourself." I ignored it. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Catherine. "Hawaii was for your father's health. Lucas is under pressure. Be the bigger person. You're good with money. We need you." I stared at the screen, fingers hovering. I typed and erased 4 replies. Finally, 12 words. "I love you. I'm not available for financial support." The silence that followed was a strange relief. For once, the responsibility, the constant calculations, the worry for every dollar and every just this once favor didn't rest on my shoulders. In those quiet moments, I realized the ledger was more than numbers. It was a map of my own boundaries. I had finally drawn the line between love and obligation, between self-sacrifice and exploitation. Weeks passed. Catherine tried softer approaches. "Want some soup?" she asked during a text exchange. I said yes. With a rule, no money talk. Lucas sent links to new merchandise, a test of limits. I responded with neutrality. Slowly, the family rhythm began to shift. My boundaries weren't violent. They were silent, firm, unyielding. And I began to notice something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. Freedom. Freedom to sleep without worry about unpaid bills. Freedom to plan my PTO without strings attached. Freedom to enjoy small, ordinary joys. Coffee, a weekend class, or a quiet evening on the porch, without invisible debts hanging over me. The knock at my apartment door came with the familiar weight of anticipation. I already knew it would be Catherine, flanked, probably, by Lucas. I opened it slowly, keeping my voice steady, my heart quieter than I expected. "Elena," Catherine said, smiling too brightly. "We need to talk. About the house. About everything." I nodded, letting her step inside. I had prepared. I had rehearsed. The ledger was on the table, a silent witness. Richard had called earlier that day, voice low and gravelly. "I just want you to understand, your mother's fragile. Lucas, he's trying. Don't push too hard." I didn't respond. I didn't need to justify myself. I had learned that explanations can be manipulated, emotions can be weaponized. I placed the envelope in the middle of the table. "Take this," I said. Catherine's eyes flicked to it, then back to me. She opened it, scanning every line, every number. Textbooks, water heater, car, Lucas's music project. She trailed off. Her lips pressed together like she was holding back a storm. "I kept track," I said softly, "because you promised to pay me back. Because you didn't. Because I am done." Lucas shifted beside her. "Elena, come on, you're being dramatic. We just needed help. You always say yes." "Not anymore," I replied. "I've said yes for years. Look at the ledger. Look at every favor I've quietly covered. Look at the debt of love you've created." Catherine's face went pale. Her fingers trembled as she held the paper. I watched carefully, ready for the feint she often threatened but rarely executed. "Mom?" Lucas whispered, sensing the tension. I'm fine," she said, but her voice was weaker than her usual bravado. I guided her to the couch, gently, keeping control. Lucas froze, caught between mockery and concern. "This isn't about punishment," I said. "It's about closure, about setting boundaries, about protecting myself. I am not your ATM. I am not responsible for your lies, your Instagram vacations, your reckless spending. I will not co-sign, guarantee, or cover another mistake." Richard, who had finally stepped into the room, watched quietly. "Elena, are you sure?" "Yes," I said firmly. "I am done being the safety net that gets blamed when things go wrong. I am done keeping peace at the expense of my own life." Catherine's hands shook as she folded the paper. You're doing this to hurt me," she said, voice wavering. "I'm doing this to stop hurting myself," I replied. The room was heavy with silence. The ledger lay open between us, a stark, tangible barrier that neither charm nor tears could cross. Lucas shifted, attempting to soften the tension. "Elena, don't let this ruin things. We're family. We need a little help." "I've helped," I said quietly, "for 14 years. I've done everything I could, and it was never enough. But enough is enough. Family can exist without financial control, without manipulation, without lies." Catherine looked at me then, really looked, and something in her posture shifted. She was no longer commanding, no longer cheerful. She was raw, exposed, facing the consequence of her actions. I handed her a second envelope. "This is my boundary. Legal, clear, no exceptions, no more requests, no more accounts in my name. Any attempt will be handled by law. This isn't revenge. This is closure." She read it. Slowly. Her face changed in shades. Pale, then red, then pale again. I felt the room tilt slightly, the weight of years of manipulation finally giving way. Lucas exhaled sharply, his charm useless here. Richard stayed silent, observing. I stayed steady, watching every flicker of emotion, knowing this moment was final. Catherine's body wavered. No dramatic swoon, just a brief lapse, a silent surrender. I helped her sit fully on the couch, lifting her feet onto the ottoman. She blinked up at me, eyes wide and uncomprehending. You'll regret this," she whispered. "No," I said. "I regret everything that brought us here, but I will not regret protecting my future, my life, and my peace." Lucas finally spoke, softer now. "Elena, maybe you're right." Days turned into weeks, and the silence after the confrontation was both strange and liberating. Catherine stopped sending endless Instagram stories. Lucas eased up on his demands, and Richard finally started speaking openly, without the need to mediate every situation. I spent mornings running through quiet streets, the cold air reminding me that boundaries, once set, felt like armor, but not the heavy kind. Light, breathable, protective. I reconnected with the little joys I had buried under years of just this once favors. Cooking Sunday dinners just for me and Daniel, arranging my pantry the way I liked, enjoying the small thrill of planning a weekend getaway without anyone else's chaos attached. Daniel noticed the change. "You seem lighter," he said one evening, as we watched the sun set over the lake near our apartment. "I am," I replied, letting the tension in my shoulders ease. "It's quiet, but it's freedom." The family attempted a new rhythm, one that didn't involve financial dependence on me. Catherine tried to slip in a comment about a new opportunity for Lucas, but I smiled, nodded politely, and reminded her with my voice, not anger, just calm, "No financial discussions, please." Lucas learned quickly. The text slowed, the request stopped. He began to try things on his own, small steps, but real ones. He even celebrated a minor success with a simple message: "Sold 8 hoodies, not asking for anything." It was strange, almost surreal, to experience family interaction without strings attached. Meals, calls, and visits became lighter. I could enjoy them without calculating every possible outcome, without secretly preparing for the next inevitable request. I started keeping a personal journal again, jotting down small victories. Ran 3 mornings this week, cooked soup just for fun, spent 30 minutes reading without guilt. Daniel supported me quietly, letting me take the lead, letting me rebuild the boundaries I'd lost for so long. There were moments of doubt, small pangs of guilt. Was I being too harsh? Too firm? But the ledger, now closed and neatly stored, reminded me why I had to be firm. One evening, Catherine reached out with a neutral message. "Soup looks good." I replied simply, "Thank you. Enjoy." The new dynamic felt fragile but fair. I also noticed subtle, personal changes. I wasn't constantly bracing for manipulation. I didn't flinch at the sound of a phone notification. I allowed myself small indulgences: a new coffee grinder, a weekend woodworking class, an unplanned hike with Daniel. Each small act was a declaration of autonomy. The vacation bag finally left my closet. I packed it, not for Hawaii, not for anyone else, but for a quiet, unspectacular weekend by the lake. No posts, no photos, no obligations, just me, the water, and the satisfaction of planning for my own peace. Even the ledger, once a symbol of confrontation and tension, became a talisman of self-respect. It reminded me that numbers could protect me, that clarity could save me, and that boundaries, once drawn, could finally hold. And slowly the hum of quiet life returned. Family visits continued, not because of guilt, obligation, or fear, but because they were just that, visits. Genuine interactions, untainted by financial tension. For the first time in years, I felt the difference between helping and being used, between love and duty, between chaos that consumes and peace that nurtures. This wasn't the dramatic resolution of a story. There was no grand apology, no sudden reconciliation. It was quieter, steadier, realer. And it was mine.